It was a huge week this week if you are a fan of Jeep or Chrysler or Dodge or any of the brands underneath the Stellantis umbrella, because CEO Carlos Tavares has officially resigned, stepped down, moved aside, whatever you want to call it. And the question is, what does that mean for the future of Jeep, and how is that going to impact the next generation Wrangler? The Jeep brand has a long and storied history. Now, Jeep will tell you their roots date back to 1941, but the corporation Jeep wasn't even around in 1941 when the first Willys MB and Ford GPWs rolled off the line to support the war effort. Really, the story of Jeep, in my opinion, starts after the wars under that Willys, or do you say Willis Corporation, and then it went under the Kaiser Corporation, and then AMC, and later Chrysler and Daimler Chrysler, and then FCA and Stellantis, and there's a couple others in there I'm missing. But the point is that the Jeep brand has seen a lot of different ownership over the years, and the Wrangler as we know it today has evolved immensely. Through it all, the iconic open Jeep has remained, starting of course with the CJ series, or civilian Jeep post-war, and then later transitioning to the Wrangler nameplate in 1987. And there have been many generations of Wrangler, from the YJ to the TJ to the JK, and now the JL. But the fact of the matter remains that this JL, it's going on 6, almost 7 years old now, and it's kind of time for a big update, a new generation in my opinion, because there is one thing the Jeep is facing that it really hasn't faced for the last 25 years. And that of course is competition. For years, the Jeep kind of stood on its own as the truly only really rugged open-top four-wheel drive on the market here in the US. Then, of course, we saw the introduction of the Bronco a few years ago, which completely changed the landscape. And since then, the four-wheel drive market has exploded with vehicles like the Ineos Grenadier. We've got a new 4Runner coming, and there's just an endless list of ever more rugged crossovers and SUVs on the market. Now let's talk about this Wrangler. Let's talk about what the JL does really, really well, and what I hope to see moving forward on the next generation of Jeep. I'm going to start the things I love about the JL Wrangler under the hood. You see, for a lot of years, you could get your Jeep in any configuration you wanted, as long as it was a somewhat underwhelming, naturally aspirated V6. But starting with this JL Wrangler, for the first time in decades, Jeep is offering what a lot of Jeepers wanted for years, and that is choice. That's right, you can get this Wrangler in naturally aspirated V6, or turbocharged 4-cylinder, or hybridized turbo 4-cylinder, or V8, and even a diesel for a while. And that was such a great move that Jeep offered. And I truly hope in the next generation of Wrangler, they continue to offer the consumer a wide variety of choice. I love that you can get this crazy V8 in this little Jeep. I mean, what an amazing option that was. My big fear is, especially with Stellantis being a company largely European focused with a lot of their brands, is that they're going to continue to force more and more electrification upon US consumers. And we're seeing more and more that's just simply not what Jeepers in America want. Jeepers want their V8s and their V6s and their turbo power. And yes, maybe they like the option of the hybrid system. Maybe some want a full electric. But my biggest fear is that Stellantis will start eliminating gasoline powertrains and replace the Wrangler with the Recon. Now, the Recon looks like a really cool, fully electric, open-top SUV, but it's not a Wrangler, and it will never be a Wrangler in my opinion. A Wrangler has to be able to give open-top freedom with the ability to fill up quickly and on a trail. And up until now, we just haven't seen the technology make its way into the electric world. If there is one thing that even Jeep haters can't say, it's that the Jeep isn't capable. Because the Wrangler is, in my opinion, still the off-road benchmark in 2024. There's a lot of stiff competition. The Bronco's amazing, the Grenadier is amazing, the 4Runner's amazing, but what you can do with the Wrangler out of the box, in my opinion, is still unmatched. Bronco's close. It's like 85-90% of the way there, and it's a lot better desert running with the Raptor. But if you just want sheer capability, what you can crawl up a lifted Wrangler or even a stock Wrangler on 35s is magic. So another thing I think Jeep has done pretty well with this generation of JL is update the interior. Now, Wranglers for a lot of years had a very poor interior, and for this latest update, they've done a great job of bringing some more color and some more contrast into this inside. I like this kind of fabric panel across the dash. The big Uconnect screen works very well. I think the technology in this Wrangler is easily the best in this category from an interface standpoint. It's just very easy to use, and I like the seat design as well. So those are all good things, but let's start talking about things that I think Jeep could improve upon. In my opinion, the Wrangler has been lacking behind the competition for a long time now in terms of seat comfort. So they have added lumbar control in the JL, which is great. This one still doesn't have it on the passenger side, which is stupid. But the seats are too firm, they're unsupportive, they don't offer enough adjustability, even though you can now get them in power. In my opinion, they still don't offer enough movement. And then the bigger problem is they just don't go far enough back. At least for someone like me, I'm mildly tall. I'm 6 feet, maybe 6.5 on like a really good day, and I just can't get enough rearward travel on these seats. So I think that's something that Jeep could definitely improve on in the next generation of Wrangler. Another thing I think Jeep has done really well is maintain the open top freedom that the Wrangler has always offered, and not all manufacturers have kept the open topness of their vehicles. Look at the 4Runner, we were just talking about it. The first gen you could pull it off, and then after that, that option quickly went away. We also saw that back in the 60s and 70s and the 80s with some of the other four-wheel drives. But through it all, you've always been able to remove the tops and the doors and even fold the windshields on Wranglers. Now, the fact of the matter is, I don't think the next generation needs to have a folding windshield, because in the years I have been driving Jeeps, I have never actually seen one on the road or on the trail for that matter with the windshield folded. But the doors always must be easy to come off. The tops always must come off a Wrangler. And in my opinion, it's cool that Jeep has been able to maintain this feature, especially with the doors, in an era where safety requirements are getting harder and harder. And this is a global vehicle. It's awesome. That is still retained. Great work, Jeep. The on-road capability is where things start to fall apart a little bit, because part of what makes it so magic off-road is that solid front axle, the beam front axle with the sway bar disconnect that allows maximum front end wheel travel and make sure that all four wheels are touching the ground, right? And then the solid axle in the rear and the body on frame construction, it's all really good off-road. This vehicle is very compromised on-road. And if the next generation goes independent front suspension, this is a hot take, I'm not going to be that upset about it, because what the Bronco has proven is you can get 85-90% of the capability with an independent front and then get a lot better road dynamics than you can with a beam front axle. So I wouldn't be upset if the next generation goes independent. Sacrilege, I know, but realistically, your typical consumer is not going to be upset either, and they are really going to welcome the on-road improvements. Now, other things I think that Jeep could improve on-road. It's actually, it's one of those things, right, where the steering is not great, but in my opinion, it's not as bad as people would have you say. The brakes, especially with the two-door and the short wheelbase, aren't all that confidence-inspiring, but they're good enough. My biggest problem with this vehicle on-road is it's a little cozy, and I don't mean that in a good way. It's just very narrow, which is good on the trail, and it's very stubby. Okay, the 4-door is obviously a little better, but I'd love to see the Wrangler get a little bit bigger, maybe 5 or 10% bigger. And I know, once again, all the on-road sacrifices are going to mean worse off-road capability, but that's really what Jeep needs to do, I think, to compete more with the competition, because reality is 99% of Jeeps spend 99% of the time on road, and this is what people are buying them for. So this needs to get a little better, and ideally do it in a smart way where you're not sacrificing off-roading. Another thing I think that Jeep has done a really good job with, and I really hope they maintain in the next generation, is the two-door nature of the Wrangler. Is it practical? No. Is it cost-effective? Maybe, maybe not. But the reality is, this configuration is Jeep's halo product. And what I mean by that is, if you think of a brand and what vehicle represents that brand, you think of Porsche and you think of the 911. You think of Mercedes and you think of the S-Class. You think of Volkswagen, you probably think of the Beetle, right? You think of Jeep, you think of the two-door Wrangler. The four-door Wrangler outsells this thing like 3 or 4 to 1. I mean, it's insane how many more people buy the unlimited versions. But having the two-door is important into maintaining the look of the Wrangler, in my opinion, and also keeping the enthusiast happy, because a lot of enthusiasts still love the two-door configuration. Now, the other aspect of Jeep ownership we need to talk about is quality and reliability. In my humble opinion, from talking to a lot of viewers, checking out the forums, doing my own independent research, JL Wrangler has been by far the most reliable of all the Wrangler lineups. Maybe not like the CJ stuff in the 60s and 70s, because that was a whole other can of worms, but Wranglers from 87, this has been the highest quality. And what I mean by that is, if you look at common part failures, there are part failures, there are things that go wrong with JLs, like 3.6s and their plastic, oil surrounds. I mean, some of that stuff is bad. But for the most part, and talking to some master techs too, 3.6 JL Wrangler with the automatic or the manual is a vehicle that will last 150, 200,000 miles with proper maintenance without a ton of failures. And that's great. But I still think Jeep could push it some more because they do have this reputation for unreliability. And one of the ways they could do that is to develop a new Wrangler and stand by that product so much they have the first 200,000 mile warranty. And what I mean by that is Hyundai Kia shocked the world with the 100,000 mile warranty. If Jeep could do it with a 150 or 200,000 mile warranty, even if people aren't keeping the Wranglers that long, that would be a cool way to differentiate this product. The next thing I want to commend Jeep on is how true they have stuck to the original Jeep design. We live in an era where fuel economy and emissions are so critical to new vehicle design, and yet Jeep still has managed to produce a very vertical, very upright, very tough-looking and functional four-wheel drive vehicle. And Jeep really focused on with this JL the aftermarket community and the ability to basically use this as a giant Lego set. And I truly hope they maintain that in the new generation. Bumpers, fender flares, grills, tops, rock rails are so easy to change, to add, to configure in the aftermarket. And that is something we simply don't see in a lot of other automakers. Like, look at the Toyota 4Runner. Amazing four-wheel drive. I'm a huge 4Runner fan, but winch bumpers and bumpers in general typically are a bigger job on a 4Runner because there's some cutting and trimming and adjusting you have to do to the fundamental design of the vehicle. Jeeps are truly the Lego sets of vehicles, and I really hope in the next generation they maintain that aspect. The final aspect of the Wrangler I do want to talk about, which I think Jeep has done pretty well up until this point, but I sure hope they don't follow into this trap, is making the Wrangler too tech forward. This big screen in this Wrangler, this Uconnect 5, it's effective, it's functional, it's easy to use, but it doesn't require a subscription. It still has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, it's all wireless, and it just works well. And I would hate to see the next generation of Wrangler go completely screens, lose all buttons, lose the four-wheel drive transfer case lever, and then end up with the vehicle that I need a subscription to use a remote start. I really hope that doesn't end up being the case, because I think this is a perfect level of technology. Jeep, stop here. You've accomplished the right level of tech. Now improve the quality and the road-going characteristics, maybe the fuel economy a little bit, but don't make it too tech forward, because I think that would be the wrong move. And that brings me to the biggest thing that Jeep needs to keep in mind when designing the next generation of Wrangler, and that simply has to be the cost, the price, the value, whatever you want to call it. Jeeps have gotten too expensive. There was an era where Jeep thought a $30,000 Wrangler wouldn't sell. With, I think it was a TJ Rubicon was 30 grand, and they thought they'd lost their mind. And now we're in an era where a Wrangler is, in a lot of cases, 60, 70, 80, 90, even over 100 grand for some of the 392s. Now, I'm fine having an expensive Wrangler, but you gotta keep the everyman in mind, because that's what Jeep is all about. It's about giving your typical average Joe the ability to explore America with uninhibited freedom for not a lot of money. This base sport Wrangler with roll-up windows and no power locks was 41 grand sticker. Now, here's the thing. Dealers have figured out you can't sell a base model Wrangler at 41 grand sticker, which is why the dealers have to kind of correct Jeep's mistake, in my opinion, by offering big money on the hoods, big discounts. Even Jeep themselves have to offer money on the hood. And I would love to see them say the next generation Wrangler starts 25 grand. And I don't care if it's completely stripped down with nothing. just being able to get into one of these for under 30 would be huge. And then you can still have ones that are $70,000, $75,000, but offer more of the market in that 25 to 40K range, and I think you'd have a real hit on your hands. And that's what I really wish, I don't think it's gonna happen, but I really wish that Jeep would return to. Let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Let me know if I'm off my rocker. And as always, this has been Tommy behind the camera, Mary. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.